Hello and welcome to Keep Right On, a Birmingham City podcast brought to you from us here at Birmingham Live. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined by Alex Dicken. Both of us reasonably fresh after a day off, the day after the night before, which was the Birmingham City end of season awards due. In that spirit, we're going to come up with some of our own awards, the alternative awards, hand out a few non-existent gongs because we haven't got the budget for any prizes. But yeah, we're gonna pick through our moments of the season and little offbeat incidents. Alex, thanks for joining us. Just your thoughts about the awards in the evening on Sunday night. Another rousing Tom Wagner speech. Christoph Clara cleared up as we thought he was going to. A couple of awards for Jay. What stood out for you about the awards evening?
Yeah, I mean, Wagner's speech, for starters, I think it was only 5 minutes, and we must have touched each other's legs in excitement at a potential line every 5 or 6 seconds through it. So yeah, Wagner's speech was a real highlight. Speaking to Jay Stansfield afterwards, he obviously retained 2 of his awards. He was actually really honest and frank about kind of the season that he's had and dealing with the pressure of being the boo boy for every single set of opposition supporters this season, through no fault of his own, just his price tag. So that was obviously interesting to hear. Clara cleaning up as we kind of expected, and interviewing Smoky Water for the first time as well via his translator. He seemed to understand what I was saying, but obviously didn't feel comfortable enough like conversing in English yet. So that was good for the first time, and just a good night. I think by the time I came out after my final interview with Clara, after all the awards had done, it was all kind of kicking off and everyone was dancing around the just below the stage. So it was a stark contrast to this time last year.
I was just going to say that actually, all the end of season awards I've done, obviously, they've been celebrating relegation escapes. You actually did the one where they had an end of season awards. Was it on the day or the day after relegation?
The day after, yeah.
The day after relegation. So this one was unlike anyone that I've ever been to, in the years that I've been going. There was more people there. It was absolutely rammed. And as Kelly Summers, he was brilliant, to be fair, really good in terms of emceeing and presenting. As she said, the atmosphere in the room was electric. So, yeah, really good night. And I don't think either of us would quibble with any of the recipients of the awards, would we? I think they were all pretty nailed on.
No, definitely not.
Which brings us to our alternative awards. I'll just run through them and just to lay the table. So we're going to start off with Tom Wagnerism of the season. I think it's probably fair to say that Wagner has been the sort of front and foremost person associated with Blues this season. So we're going to pick through some of the stuff that he's been saying and doing. Moment of the season, Alex and I will pick each of our favourite moments of the season, miss of the season, pass of the season, anyone that the jury's still out on, an unsung hero from the non-playing staff. So if you are in the Blues media team, you might want to pay attention for when we get to that. Biggest disappointments or surprise, the favourite away trip, the ground we're happy not to go back to, most welcoming press box, best or favourite interview, and most awkward interview as well. So we'll run through some of those and hopefully give you some insight, not necessarily as to our opinions about the players, because you'll know what those are. We've been talking about them all year, but just sort of a peek behind the curtain, which hopefully you'll find interesting. Alex, let's start off with Tom Wagner, the only place we can start. What's been your favourite Tom Wagnerism of the season?
There's been a lot. We probably by now, every time Tom Wagner speaks, he occasionally throws in a little swear word, doesn't he? And I'm sure you might go with one of them. So I wanted to go for a non-verbal thing from this season. At Wembley, obviously, he was, kind of front and centre of it. Obviously, mic'd up for the purpose of the Amazon documentary, and probably a greater insight when that airs. But he was walking around the pitch pre-match, trying to G up the players, I think, and G up the supporters. And I was just watching him, and he high-fived a group of players while they were warming up, and just as they kind of made their way past him, like doing high knees or whatever it was, he just smacked Ben Davies on the bum, and gave him a little pat on his way, which I thought was quite nice and funny. Not many owners do that sort of thing. But yeah, there's probably a fair few to go from, and I guess you're going to give us another more obvious one.
Yeah, so there are two. I mean, I spoke to Tom Wagner in the mix zone after Wembley, and when I asked him, "Is there any chance of you breaking the transfer record again this season?" and he said, "We'll try." You just don't get straight answers like that very often when you do these interviews. Certainly not in the mix zone, which is it's a very busy area where all managers and players are all filing past, desperate not to catch your eye. So that was a highlight, but. I think, and I can't use the actual quote, but I think most people would agree it was on the pitch after the trophy celebration against Mansfield. And Wagner dropped, as you say, what is now becoming quite a customary F-bomb, suggesting that while that day was a good day, that Sunday, and it was a great day, it certainly wouldn't be the last good day and not anything like the best day. So, that was really just great to hear. And just to use a bit of a Wagnerism back on himself, I've also asked him if he's hearing the noises that he wants to from politicians as regards to sports quarter, and he says he's hearing the noises, but he now wants to see the actions. I'm looking forward to seeing Tom Wagner's actions on that front as well, delivering more good days. So yeah, that one, I think. Moment of the season, I absolutely know where you're going with this. What's been your favourite moment of the season, Alex?
Oh, there's many, but the real standout moment has to be that Lucas Djukovic goal against Barnsley. Just to see those.
What a finish!
Yeah, really almost missed it. But just to see those scenes for the sixth goal in a 6-2 win was just remarkable. There were literally people around me in the press box who were like jumping for joy because obviously we all knew what it meant to Lucas Djukovic to have that one final moment in front of the Tilton, and the way he celebrated it as well. I mean, it was absolutely euphoric, wasn't it? And you don't see scenes like that very often in a football game, but given the circumstances and the situation of the game, it was even more surprising to see it, but obviously not surprising because we knew what one final goal for Lucas Djukovic would mean to St Andrews.
You don't get many sixth goals in a 6-2 win celebrated that way, do you? No. And we can't give him the Cambridge goal, can we? Even though he tried to, mount a fairly sincere celebration, claiming as it is, it's not his goal, is it?
Absolutely not. No, he was nowhere near it.
No, but he did put the pressure on. You want to give him a hockey assist or something like that? I know it's one of your things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, my moment of the season would be those scenes away at Peterborough. And again, it's a drum I continue to beat, and it might be a bit dull for people. But if you compare the euphoria of promotion being confirmed at Peterborough, with the years that have gone before it, I tweeted at the time it was a privilege to be there, and it really was. Just to know that they'd done it, and that, these celebrations. I've seen Blues players celebrate on the pitch many times before, but avoiding relegation rather than winning a league, or no, hadn't won a league by that stage, had they? But achieving a promotion. Not seen those scenes, I think, since 2000. Was it 2007-8 was the last promotion? So yeah, just brilliant. And then after that, to come out and the players were happy to talk. Christian Bielik, he stopped for an interview. Alfie May did a good interview. Just the satisfaction and the relief, and seeing Blues fans just so happy, and seeing real joy from the players as well. That for me, I'll bottle that, and when I hang up the pen, whenever that may be, it'll be one of the 4 or 5 favourite moments from my journalism career. Just it was, as I say, just a privilege to be in that stadium that day.
Yeah, agreed.
Miss of the season. Now, there are some slightly negative categories here. Not out of the fact we missed the fact that Blues have scored got 111 points and scored over 100 goals. We recognise all that. We're trying to do alternative awards to the goal of the season award. Obviously, that was Tomoki Iwata, and that was my favourite goal. Miss of the season, Alex.
Yeah, we don't have to be happy clappers, Brian. To be fair, we can kind of say what we think as well. And yeah, there are bad misses that deserve pointing out sometimes.
Yeah.
Alfie May against Huddersfield at home was probably mine. I think it's a little bit harsh on May because the ball was kind of behind him, but he was literally underneath the crossbar as Willem Willemsen chipped it across. It was probably going in without May's touch. or it was definitely going if May had left it for Taylor Gardner-Hickman right behind him. So how he managed to divert the ball over the crossbar from all of a yard, I'll never know. I don't think Alfie May will know it. I think he owned up to it afterwards and said how bad it was.
Yeah, I'm gonna dip into my bag of Willem Willemsen's missed headers. So there's plenty to choose from. Should we go through the short list, or shall I just I'll just come up with the actual winner or loser? Yeah, it was the one away at Northampton. Ball in from Kieran Dowell, right on his head, 6 yards out. I think the game was 1-1 at the time, and just zero power and just the angle all wrong. I probably could have picked missed headers away at Exeter as well, and there's others that are buried deep in the recesses. So in the spirit of Thor's missed headers, I'm going to go for that one away at Northampton.
That's its own podcast, to be fair, Brian. Thor's missed headers.
No, come on, we're not having too much Thor shade now. The man's rehabilitated. Surely some 3 pretty good performances at the end of the season, albeit in dead rubbers.
Yeah.
But no, I think I did see signs of him being slightly more physical, to be fair. Let's not turn into a forecast, but go on.
No, I agree. I think there was there was a conversation between Chris Davies and Willemsen before the Burton game on Easter Monday, I think, and we saw that he was much improved in that game, and he did finish the season strong in his final 3 or 4 matches. He was very good in the home game against Mansfield, pretty good against Blackpool as well. And did the job first half again. I thought he was one of the better players first half in 45 minutes against Cambridge. So a positive end to the season for him. I think the test will come for him. Can he replicate what he did in the first half of the season, next season, the Championship? Because although he's been good in the final 3 or 4 matches of this season, he hasn't been put under a great deal of pressure by the opposition teams. I remember Mansfield, they barely pressed second half against Blues. Blackpool weren't exactly the most energetic team in the world. We need to see him do it on a more consistent basis when there is a tougher level of opposition.
Staying with Thor, we move on to our next category, which is the Willem Willemsen pass of the season. Doesn't have to be a Thor pass, but I think we've both chosen one, haven't we? Pass of the season, Alex, go on.
There are some great contenders.
Give us some non. We've both chosen Thor passes as our favorite ones. Give us some non-Thor ones first.
Ooh. You are putting me on the spot now.
I mean, some of Alex Cochrane's crosses from quite shallow on the left wing. They've been absolutely brilliant, haven't they? There's a pinpoint one to Jay and another one to Alfie May. I think the one to Alfie May just cleared the defender, didn't it? And he scored with his head. Who was that? Barnsley.
Yeah, carbon copies. And one pass I do want to throw into the mix that I completely overlooked was Peck against Wigan. That set Ethan Laird away to assist Alfie May's first goal. Blues are just kind of like knocking it around in midfield through to defence and back into midfield, and he's just kind of seen the run from Laird in behind and just whipped a lovely ball right into his path. Laird's taken it fantastically and squared for Alfie May, but it completely unlocked Wigan in what was quite a close opening to that game. So that was very high quality. But yeah, back to the Willemsen pass of the season.
To be fair, it could also be the Ryan Allsop pass of the season competition as well, couldn't it?
Yeah. We've overlooked 2 there, haven't we?
He did many sort of long ball forwards to wingers, sort of running from outside to inside. The one to Taylor Gardner-Hickman volley against Wickham was unreal, made even better by the chest control and the volley, albeit the goalkeeper spooned it a little bit. But yeah, Allsop's had plenty of those as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. The one against Blackpool set Keshi Anderson away to set up Alfie May. I think back to the Huddersfield away game that night, it felt like Allsop had 4 or 5 where he's put a Blues winger through to create a chance. So his array of passes is ridiculous. But my Willemsen one, or my pass of the season rather, would be I'm gonna go the cute little pass that he made to Keshi Anderson to set up his clinching goal at Lincoln back in October. So it's effectively a dummy because the touch is so faint. But he has just kind of just towed it almost into the ball's come across, I think, from Yokoyama. And Willemsen's just kind of towed it into the path of Anderson for a first time finish. So just exquisite. You know, the level of invention and technique to be able to pull something like that off, and it shows how good a player he is. That I think the top 3 contenders for this alternative award are all Williamson passes.
Yeah, you've left me the back spinner against Rotherham for Jay's goal.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember after that game we eulogised about it then, but I'm actually going to go for one against Mansfield for Keshi Anderson. Now, it's not when you watch a lot of football, you kind of used to the patterns and of play and what the predictable passes are. But I just although Keshi Anderson was in acres of space in the middle of the penalty area, just did not see that angle that Thor saw. And it felt like this whole stadium went one way and Thor passed it the other way. And Anderson was clean through. Whether it was a feint of the body or whether it was Anderson's movement or whether it was the weight on the pass, I don't know. But it was generally, wow. It was only about 5 yards, wasn't it? It wasn't a very long pass, but I think it was just the deception and the disguise. The disguise is the word I'm looking for that was put on that pass. So I'm going for that one with an honourable mention to the sand wedge over the top of the Rotherham defence, which backspun and sat up beautifully for Jay.
I can't believe we've left that one out, but like you say about that pass against Mansfield, it was so kind of short and simple, and yet so brilliant. That's the kind of goal you see in the Premier League. That is where a player just gives it in first time, disguised pass, and he's all of a sudden create a goal scoring chance. So yeah, quality.
Yeah. Enough Thorisms now. Right. Who is the jury still out on this season, Alex?
I might get some pelters for this, but I'm going to say Mark Leonard. I think in spells, I think he's done really well. Particularly first half of the season, I think he handled the, playing second fiddle to Iwata and Peck quite well. He came into the team and did well when he had the chance, which wasn't particularly often, or when Blues needed more control, greater control of a game. Chris Davies would occasionally put him on as a number 10, wouldn't he? I remember him doing that at Barnsley away. And I thought he played really well and gave Blues control of that match. And they obviously went on to win it. But second half of the season, I think he's dipped a little bit since coming back from the injury. Obviously got that nasty injury in the FA Cup against Newcastle. And when he's had chances at the end of the season, I thought he played quite well at Blackpool, but in some of the other matches, I just thought he could have maybe done a little bit better.
It's been on and off, hasn't it?
Yeah, which is why it wouldn't surprise me if Blues did look to maybe add another option in midfield to compete with Peck and Iwata next season. Leonard, and then it wouldn't surprise me if Leonard wanted to explore his options elsewhere, because again, he's a player who's been used to in the early part of his career playing every single week, and it hasn't been that for him this season. So I feel very sorry for him that he has, he's barely played or not played as much as he would have liked. But I think when he has had the chances second half of the season, he could have done more.
And this is on the back of us saying most of this season, or me particularly, saying, the player that has potentially got the highest ceiling or unknown level that he could go to, and maybe even into the Premier League or would go with Blues into the Premier League, could potentially be Mark Leonard.
No, I still agree. His ceiling is really high, and we've seen bits this season for him that make you think that he could definitely go and play in the Premier League. And because of the age of Peck and Iwata, they're both 28 years old. Leonard's 23, so he could, he's got 5 years on them, hasn't he? His development's going to probably go above both potentially. But I think he could have done more in the second half of the season, the chances that he's had. I don't think he made Chris Davies' job that difficult whenever Peck or Iwata was injured.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah,
I mean, I dare say Chris Davies would have brought them both back into the 11 anyway, irrespective of what Leonard did. Leonard could maybe have scored a hat-trick and still lost his place in the team to those two, because it has been absolutely set in stone that they will play this season when they are fit. But I don't think in the game, before you knew one of them was going to come back, Leonard would always not play that well. So I think he could have done more.
Yeah, okay. I do like the fact he looks to play forward a lot. I don't necessarily always see that with Peck and Iwata. But I still have a lot of faith in Leonard's ability. There's definitely something there. Mine, I've forgotten mine. Oh yeah, Lyndon Dykes. I think the jury's still a little bit out on Lyndon Dykes. Now that said, his season was ended by a nasty injury. Scored a brilliant goal in the FA Cup against Lincoln, which in many other seasons that's clear goal of the season, but not this season. And also a goal in the Virtue Trophy semi-final against Bradford. That sort of very late, was it injury time header or just it was a late last few minutes header, and that sparked scenes that I've not seen at St Andrews for many years. You know, the euphoria that surrounded that and the celebrations and what it meant of going to Wembley. But I still feel, you know, I think there's more to come from him. He's got plenty of championship experience. When Blues go, no, when now, isn't it? When Blues go up and they are in the championship, you don't mind having Lyndon Dykes in your squad. But has he been the dominant kind of player that punches his weight? You know, not in the way that Lucas Djukovic plays his football, because he doesn't play that way. But has he quite, you know, fulfilled the billing or met the brief just yet? I do still think there are a few doubts, a few queries out on that, and I'd like to see him. I'd like to see a bit more from him, is what I'm saying, really.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, you know, in that final week that he played this season, when he scored that goal against Bradford, that's kind of what we've been wanting to see from him all season, isn't it? And we didn't see enough of that. I think that was the only header he scored, wasn't it? Oh, I guess they give the Wrexham one. That took about 4 deflections before it went in. So we need to see more of that from him. He needs to kind of use his size better. I don't think that is necessarily his game. As much. No. He's more of a link player, isn't he? And he's happy to play with his back to goal, but he wants to get involved in the play more than just kind of waiting in the box for crosses and things to come in. So we probably judged him a little bit unfairly in that regard. But I think 5 goals in his first season, 1 in League One. Even though he obviously had limited football, it probably won't cut it for Dykes really either, will it?
Yeah. And I think he is a little bit of victim of circumstance, because, you know, we've watched all season long so many crosses go into the middle of the box, and, you know, Jay's been up against 3 centre backs, and you just think, right, who's the big man? Why is the big man not getting on the end of that? And that's not Dykes' game, so he's kind of it's unfair of us to point that at him. But you would just like that more physical edge, and you can say the same for Willem, can't you? Well, in those situations as well. You just want someone that's a bit bigger to be putting their bodies on opposition defenders and making it slightly harder for them. Favorite away trip, Alex? What's been your favorite away trip?
I quite like the one I know you're going to pick, to be honest.
Yeah, I've got the right answer for this one.
See, everything tells me that I hated Barnsley away because it was kind of winter. Winter was
just a horrible day.
Winter was just kicking in. It was really, really cold.
Yeah, it was so windy, wasn't it?
I remember interviewing Chris Davies afterwards, and literally my hand was there like this because it was so cold.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was kind of huge in the context of Blues season. To get that win, for Stansfield to get those 2 goals, particularly after Blues had got a goal down, I just think it just lifted them. And by Christmas, they were top. And then obviously pulled away into the new year. So that was a real turning point, I think. Not that they needed a turning point, because they weren't exactly doing badly up until that point with only 2 defeats.
It was viewed as a statement win, though, wasn't it?
It felt significant, though, because at the time, Barnsley were a team that do have a good group of players and were looking to challenge, and Blues.
Great midfield.
Yeah, apparently so. And Blues just sorted them aside in the second half and got a really, really big win. So I'll go with that one.
Yeah, as a long-term sufferer of a shaky dictaphone hand, you have my sympathies there. It's actually quite embarrassing when you've got your dictaphone your phone under a manager's nose, and you're rattling it off their chin as they're trying to speak. I've gone favourite away day trip. The answer is Wickham. For me, a really open game. I think that was the first time we were quite close to Chris Davies that day from our press box position, weren't we? And we really could see the fury, couldn't we, at times? And when I think Clara gave the ball away, and then in the build up to the Bielicone goal, maybe it wasn't an incident, but Clara gave the ball away, and honestly, it absolutely exploded. And I looked at each other like, wow. it was a 3-2 win. It was more comfortable than that, to be fair. A lovely cameo from Ayumu Yokoyama, a goal from Luke Harris, and what was so memorable about it was, just we're in for a shock. That was the first airing of we're in for a shock, wasn't it? And yeah, sun-baked, successful, open, entertaining game. We didn't really know at that point how significant it was going to be, that Wycombe were going to be not the nearest challengers, but certainly the sort of the hare that Blues were chasing for quite a lot of the early part of the season. So yeah, and we saved someone's life. So
we did.
Yeah, so and we had a Barney about the way in and the way out. So it was an all round successful day.
Did you? It was, yeah. I've actually forgotten for a minute about the press box incident, but
the guy that tried to clamber over the press bench from the row below and then ended up falling backwards. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Biggest disappointment of the season, or biggest surprise? You can go with this wherever you want. We've talked about this before we came on. I've actually upgraded or developed my answer. So go on. Do what you want.
Well, I've actually forgotten what mine is, so you might as well go first, Brian.
Right, just a mention of Yokoyama there. I think a lot of people were quite excited about Yokoyama. Now, I'm not just going to pick on him personally, but I think the struggles at the wingers, Keshi Anderson aside, I think that's been disappointing this season. Hansen had a run at the start of the season, was okay, just about, I would say, without being spectacular. And then the injuries have really, undermined his season. It's been a very difficult year for him. Yokoyama, they've just not been able to get the messages across to Yokoyama to conform into the way that Davis wants the cog that is the winger, the left winger, to operate in his machine. And Scott Wright, again, there's been some promising moments. Certainly looked quite exciting when he carries the ball through midfield and through central positions, rather than when he going on the outside of a man and getting a crossing. But again, he's had injury struggles as well, and I think that's placed a little bit of a burden on players like Keshi. And Dowells maybe didn't necessarily want to play on the right of the attacking three. So yeah, I think that for me, there is a question mark going into the summer. It has been those positions.
I think you've nicked mine there, Brian, to be honest. As soon as you started talking about it, I was like, oh, that's what I meant to say. Hansen's a big one for me. Just to get through the season, to have three muscular injuries in one season, to break down so often is a little bit disappointing. We're sold a lot on Hansen, really, in that he'd had 45 goal involvements in the 2 seasons prior to joining Blue, so we expected kind of more of the same, or at least some of the same. And to get 2 goals and 2 assists in 20 odd games, I think, and particularly the goals and assists that he has got. The goal was against Bolton in the league, when again didn't really mean a great deal in a defeat, and against Shrewsbury, the 4th goal in a 4-0 win in the Virtue Trophy. So. I'd be surprised if Emil Hansen's a part of the squad next season, to be honest.
Would you? Right, okay.
Yeah, I would, to be fair. I know Chris Davies has said that when he was coming back from the first injury, that, he impressed from the first part of the season, but to have 3 separate injuries, it's been a theme of the wide department, as you said. They've kind of all been injured at various points, and Keshi's been the most durable of the 3 players. But I just think Hansen, he's been a bit of a disappointment for me. I think Wright gives you something. If you have Wright in a championship squad, as long as he's happy to be the impact sub, I think if you're losing 1-0 with 30 minutes to go, I'd be reaching for Scott Wright.
Yeah, he's got nice balance when he carries the ball through the middle, hasn't he?
Lovely ball carrier, and ball carriers are a thing in modern football now, aren't they? Everyone wants a ball carrier. So particularly someone who is happy to play as a substitute more often than not. I quite like Scott Wright. I can see a place for him on a 9-man bench, whereas Hansen isn't as explosive as I thought he was going to be. I think he's got a bit of speed, but I don't think he's flying away from right backs, or he hasn't, at least this season. Maybe he's not trusted his body after a few injuries. I don't know, but yeah, for me, I'd be surprised to see him in the squad next season.
I thought there was a moment where after his first, or maybe it was his second injury, where he did look to go on the outside more and be a little bit more aggressive with his ball carrying. But yeah, can't disagree. I mean, obviously, I can't believe neither of us have done this, but the obvious disappointment of the season is Wembley, isn't it? Now, it wasn't a surprise, I didn't think, because you and I both had concerns about the matchup, certainly with Poku and the other winger whose name escapes me now.
Oda.
That's right. Yeah. You worried about them in the open spaces, didn't you? And the 10 as well, Mothersville,
and Ricky J. Jones as well.
Yeah, you worried about them in open spaces, so it wasn't a massive surprise, but it was a big letdown. And to be fair to Blues, they got on the bike really well after that, and picked it back up and reeled off some more wins. So obviously, go on.
No, I was going to say, whenever Chris Davies gets angry after a defeat, normally a real succession of wins come afterwards, don't they? So when you think of Shrewsbury, 8 wins followed and an unbeaten run of 18 games in the league, and then obviously after Wembley, 1 draw, 5 victories. So don't make him angry. I think don't poke the bear or whatever, isn't it? So
yeah, indeed. Favourite away trip. So these next two categories, it's kind of similar. The favourite away trip and the ground you're happy not to go back to.
Have
we done favourite away trip?
No, we've done favourite away trip. Yeah.
The ground we're happy not to go back to.
I hate to moan because obviously we speak about all the time what a privileged position we are in. But if I've got to pick one, I'd probably say. Sorry, I've just realised I've got a wasp in my house in the room. That's now walking up the wall. Hopefully he doesn't come over here. If I start jumping around, we know he's near me. So I'd probably say Sixfields, Northampton. We've done Northampton a few times in pre-season. And the Wi-Fi never really seems to agree with me anyway, which always is obviously a reporter's worst nightmare.
That's quite ironic, actually, because you just glitched then.
Oh, did I? Okay.
You're not in Northampton, are you?
Hopefully not again. No, nothing against Northampton, because they, obviously will look after you and everything. But the car park was a little bit far away from my liking as well. But yeah, I mean, as long as we get parking, I never normally moan. So it's just one that I'm not going to be, sad that I'm not going next season. But then again, they'll probably do a pre-season friendly there now, and I won't be allowed in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm going to go Sutton United. It was a long way away. It was an early kickoff. The pitch wasn't great. The refereeing was appalling. I will say the welcome was very good. The media manager there, whose name escapes me now, but he was really friendly. And Radio 5 Live's Sahel Sahi was in the press box doing a commentary for them that day, and he revealed himself to be something of a Sutton United aficionado, and he was really friendly. But it was just don't want to be here, don't want to be playing in the FA Cup first round. In November.
That's very big time. That is, Brian.
Yeah, get me. Early on a Sunday morning, and I think what probably sealed the deal was the lady in the burger van just having repeated meltdowns whenever anyone asked for anything. So I think it was a big game for the burger van staff. Not one they rose to, unfortunately. So hopefully Blues will never play in the first round of the FA Cup ever again.
Well, good chance of that, to be fair.
Yes, there is. Yes, I'm not going to say we thought that before. There is a good chance of that. You're right. Most welcoming press box. Shall I do this one? Yeah, I'll do mine. I thought I would say this because it was my most enjoyable. One of my memories of the season was Peterborough away. The home reporter there, Alan Swan, really good guy, very talkative, happy to share information. The media manager, again, whose name escapes me there, was really accommodating in terms of sorting out parking, and in terms of sorting out my late request for accreditation as well. And it was clearly a busy game for him. So yeah, Peterborough really welcoming, and I guess with the Barry Fry links and the fact I'd like Blues to sign Poku, I wish them nothing but the best for next season.
Yeah, it's been a few I've actually quite enjoyed going to in League One. I would say Peterborough as well, because as we were leaving Peterborough, we were offered these burgers, weren't we, that had been left over in
Oh,
the
that's
manager's
right.
office. And I was honestly, and the one thing you really want when you're leaving a midweek game is something to eat, because you know you're probably
Yeah.
not going to stop on the way home. And I always get home at like 2 a.m. and just start scoffing pancakes. But
It invariably means a trip to McDonald's at Beaconsfield Services, doesn't it?
exactly. So to have a burger in hand as you walked out to the car was absolutely superb.
I'll tell you where else is good for that. Back in the Championship, Swansea. They give away the food at Swansea as you walk out as well. Really friendly steward who uses your first name incessantly. So yeah, that's another good one.
I've missed Championship food, to be fair. Where else? I always enjoy Burton because it's not too far, and everyone's always so friendly there. That was nice. Who else? I did come with one in mind, and now I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. Stevenage. I like Stevenage. We've been there twice, obviously. There are two women who work in the press room downstairs, and they're just really, really friendly and very talkative and nice. And the food's pretty sound there as well. So, and you park just over the road, which I always quite like. It's not a massive walk before and after. So yeah, Stevenage is one we may not do again, to be fair. So. It was nice to go there a couple of times, and obviously Blues had decent results and quite memorable results both times.
Yeah, indeed. Next season, back to the tea ladies at Oxford United as well. They're especially friendly. And Bristol City,
banana bread at Norwich.
Oh my life! We've done this before on this podcast, haven't we? But if ever there was banana bread worth travelling 9 hours for to and from, it is the banana bread at Norwich. Absolutely. The best or your favourite or most memorable doesn't have to be the best interview of the season.
Oh, there's a few that stand out. The pre-season ones with Bielik and May in Austria really stand out to me. But in terms of in the season, Stansfield before Wembley was really good. I always think Stansfield's a pretty good interviewee. I think he's sometimes given the really hard interviews when Blues have lost a game because he scored a goal or whatever. But and he's always all right in those. But when I spoke to him before Wembley, he was really good. Not only on the injury that he'd had after in the Bradford game, which for a little while put his participation in that game at Wembley in doubt. But also on kind of going to Wembley, emulating his dad who played at Wembley. And so yeah, it's just a really good emotive interview and one that I really enjoyed this season. So I'll go with that one.
You're still looking at that wasp, aren't you?
Yeah, because he's just bouncing up the window, and I think he's trying to get out. Once I finish this, I will let him out.
Yeah, as I was reading that interview, without showing how the sausage is made, Alex files stuff and into our system, and one of the editors will read it, and I was reading that interview through, and it was so enjoyable, and the bit where he explained his connection with Birmingham City. I don't know how hard you pushed him on that, or whether he just offered it up straight away.
No, I think he did. He largely offered that up. To be fair to him,
yeah, and it was. I was blown away by that. Just the sincerity and as you say, Jade maybe isn't a natural orator, but he's very good at talking when you have a conversation with him, isn't he? And he actually talks about feelings and stuff like that, which you don't. It's really quite rare, bizarrely.
No, that's the thing. I always do find that a lot of footballers work so hard trying to not give you a line or anything interesting, whereas Stansfield just speaks naturally. And sometimes, quite a lot of the interviews I've done with Stansfield, actually, there's been the emotional aspect as well. He is quite an emotional person, clearly, and the bond that he's built with the Blues fans is very, very strong, isn't it? Clearly, I'm
going to go for. It should be Wagner outside out in the mix zone at Wembley, but I'm going to go for Ben Davis, who just also nudges the Christian Bielik after the Peterborough promotion party when Richard Wilford and I are standing pitch side, and he obviously knows we're reporters, and he comes out preparing to do Blues TV, and then says, "Do you want to do an interview?" And Richard and I leapt at him, so that was good. But Ben Davis, not often at the end of an interview, particularly a post-match interview, when players either want to get on the bus or they just want to go home with their families at 6:30, which is eminently understandable. But another journalist called Tim Nash and I spoke to Ben Davies in the tunnel. I should remember which game this was, Alex. Which game was it? It was relatively. It's one he'd scored in.
I'm going to say Shrewsbury at home.
Let me check.
Yeah, because that was before Wembley as well. It was definitely Shrewsbury at home post international break, because the topic was about Wembley suits, wasn't it? A little bit. So
that's, yes, you're right. Yeah. Okay. Good preparation. Yeah, and Ben Davies is probably not the most. He's not at the front of the queue when Dale Moon goes into the changing room and says, "Right, he wants to do some media." I'm putting more strategy to it than that. But Ben Davies would not be at the front of the queue, and he has slipped by once already this season, hasn't he? I think not.
Oh yes, he did.
He did. Yeah, that was earlier in the season. Clearly, did not want to come in and speak to the press, and even on this occasion, he didn't want to come into the main press room. So there was just two of us chatting to him in near the tunnel. Or in the corridor outside the press room, and he was much more comfortable. And it was 7 or 8 very light-hearted minutes in which he spoke about, his situation at Rangers, which you didn't really expect him to go that deep into. And at the end of it, he's almost to his surprise as well, he shook her hand and said, "Thanks very much. I really enjoyed that." And again, that doesn't happen very often. So I've picked that because it did exceeded my expectations, which is always a nice thing to happen. Most awkward interview I've rattled. You know what my answer is for this, but or it doesn't have to be awkward. But do with this category what you want.
Yeah, mine's not going to top yours. So I think one of my probably the most awkward. It wasn't really awkward from an interviewing perspective, but I spoke to Alphonse Samson after, I think it was the Stevenage home game, where he'd obviously started and played quite well, and he was kind of out there that, at least in the Dutch media, that Alphonse was going to be staying at Blues, or his loan was going to be made permanent. So I just put it to him at the end of the interview, which I'm sure the media team would have been expecting, because naturally I always do that when there's a loan player or whatever. But they probably weren't expecting Alphonse to answer the question and just say yes, that he's going to be here or it's going to be made permanent. And obviously I went back with a little follow-up, and he just said, yes, I can't say the exact details, but I will be here. It's going to become a permanent transfer. And Aaron, the member of the media team who sat alongside him, clearly wasn't expecting him to come out with that, and that was probably the awkwardness or whatever. But it was more amusing than awkward, I think. But that's probably my pick. I haven't had that many awkward interviews, but I wouldn't expect to, given where Blues are in the league and how kind of straightforward it's been. Yeah,
40-odd victories will help that ratio, won't it? Definitely. Mine obviously was the Luke Harris one after the game. To be fair to Luke, I think he'd done an interview with a local radio, and then I was standing next to the local radio reporter. Then I asked a question, and he I think it was something like, obviously him and Jay Stansfield are pals, and both at Fulham. And I said to him, just asked him what Jay had told him about Blues before he came on loan, and he looked at the press guy. I think that was Aaron as well, and just said, "Do I have to answer that?" And it was like, okay, it's kind of what we're doing here. But
that's not a particularly inflammatory question, though, is it?
No.
That you're not trying to say to him, is Stansfield coming back? Which is obviously the talk at the time. It was more like, did Stansfield give you any advice about Blues? Which I think is a fair question. To be fair, he's thought you've thrown a grenade there, I think, and
maybe he didn't recognise me, and I just looked like someone random who just come along and decided to ask a question. I need to maybe put my trilby on with my press ticket in my hat, like the old style journalist in future, or at least have my accreditation visible. Maybe that was the issue. Last category, Alex, and then we'll wrap up. Because I think we're sucking as much life out of this season as we possibly can, aren't we?
We've got to.
Exactly. Yeah, there's several months ahead. Unsung hero. Should we do a football? Should we do a playing side one and a non-playing side one, or should we just go for the non-playing side?
I said, Brian, let's drag it out even further. Let's do both.
All right. Okay.
Playing side unsung hero.
We're not prepped this, have we?
No, I mean the obvious one is Alex Cochrane. to play 50 odd games, which he'd never done before. He kind of said it all to me that, Alex Cochrane must be the most modest man in the Blues squad because his target for the season was to play 50 games. I don't know how many of the Blues players went in with that target. I can imagine you can count it on one finger. But he's been exceptional, hasn't he? To have the level of consistency that Alex Cochrane's had with no competition for all bar about 6 games this season, because Lee Buchanan obviously started with an injury and then got injured pretty much as soon as he'd come back to fitness, to battle through until Myung Jae Lee started playing at the end of the season, and with the consistency he showed is excellent. So Alex Cochrane is probably the unsung hero. I don't think they've got a song from him, have they, either, Alex Cochrane? So we can say he is the unsung hero of the season, I think.
Oh, literally, very, very good. There is a song for my unsung hero, and it's probably it's sat a little bit uneasily this season, and it's we've got Super Chrissy Davis, and it's Bielik at the back. And unfortunately for Christian, he hasn't been at the back very much in the last few months. But what I would say is I think he's handled himself, certainly publicly, and from all the noises we hear privately as well. He's handled himself brilliantly. Difficult position as the club captain. Injuries, not being left out, being played at right back. Can't have been easy for him in a season that he'll have really wanted to have made an impact. Final act pretty much was the trophy lift, and he got Clara and Djukovic in on that with him as well. So pretty classy stuff from Christian Bielik, which leaves us finally to non-playing or non-football department member of unsung hero.
Yeah, there's quite a lot, to be fair. You speak to people around the stadium all the time on match day, and so many people go out of their way to help you. There's 2 women who work in the media lounge who basically feed us all season and look after us, who are absolutely exceptional. I'm going to throw the 2 social media guys in because I know they've got absolutely astronomical targets, that are directly linked to Blues revenue because
absolutely, yeah, they are the war. That's how you get through FFP, isn't it?
Yeah, literally.
By the content of these 2 lads.
So yeah, they've obviously got huge targets that are related to the sponsorship deal, and James Jevons and Louis Cartwright-Wills, who work in the social media department and come up with all these kind of innovative and sometimes antagonistic posts that you see online. It's down to them. I think back to the Mitchell brothers when Blues announced Grant at the end in the January transfer window, and then obviously Phil in Phil Neumann at the end of the day. That was absolutely exceptional content, to be fair. So yeah, just stuff like that. They did a Squid Games thing, didn't they? I think as well. That was really good and well received. So I think the club are probably doing media in general better than they have before, and are right up there in terms of the EFL. So yeah, fair play to them.
Didn't they do something with BTS last season?
Oh,
we don't talk about that, do we?
They don't talk about
that. My unsung hero will be Matt Delaney, the Blues TV commentator. I think he's a young man with a lot of potential who works really hard at his craft. The preparation that goes into his commentaries is really eye-opening. Even someone who's been in the industry quite a while, Matt comes with copious notes, not just about Blues, but about the opposition as well. He practices his, his sort of intros and his outros and what to say, what potentially key moments, but yet they don't sound laboured or forced. And I think the Blues TV have got a talented guy there. Hopefully he'll carry on doing that for as long as he wants to, because he's captured some brilliant moments really well.
Yeah, there are some really exceptional people who work behind the scenes, aren't there? As there will be at most clubs, but we obviously see it firsthand at Blues, and I know it's all very easy and friendly when the team's winning every week, as Blues have been for the most part this season. But these people have also been very good to deal with when things weren't going well at Blues. So the media team are always an absolute pleasure to deal with, and so are all the people behind the scenes, to be fair.
Enough of that. Right. Okay, Alex, I shall leave you to flee the terrors of the Wasp. And just for all that remains for me to say to you, Alex, is thank you very much for all your hard work this season. It's been absolutely brilliant. The miles you've covered, the hours you've put in, and the content you've produced. So thanks for that.
And to you, Brian.
And obviously, thanks everyone for listening to the podcast all season. We will be carrying on through the summer. Hopefully, it'll be a nice, busy summer with plenty to talk about. So it doesn't end here. But hopefully we are now putting a lid on the championship, on the League One promotion season of 2024-25. Smooth work by me. It's keep right on from both of us.